You know how your favorite streaming service seems to read your mind, suggesting the perfect movie, or how some companies just seem to make all the right moves? Well, that's not magic. It's data analytics. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify the whole thing, showing you how we turn a giant sea of digital noise into clear, smart decisions.
I mean, just try to wrap your head around this number. Every single day, humanity creates 2.5 quintillion bytes of data. That is a number so big it's almost meaningless. It's an absolute flood of information. So the billion-dollar question is this: how in the world do you take all of that chaos, all that noise, and find the one little signal that leads to a brilliant decision?
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to face that data deluge head-on. Then I'll give you the analytics roadmap, our guide for the journey. After that, we'll get our hands dirty going from mess to meaning, learn how to find hidden patterns, and finally, connect all the dots to turn an insight into impact. Ready? Let's go.
All right, first stop, that data deluge. Before we can talk about solutions, we really need to understand the scale of the problem we're dealing with. This is the whole reason data analytics even exist.
So what is big data really? It's not just that there's a lot of it. It's data that is so huge, growing so insanely fast, and is so complex that a human brain just can't handle it. We need powerful computers to dive in and pull out the patterns and trends hidden deep inside. To make sense of it, people usually talk about the 3 V's. First, you've got volume. We're talking petabytes, exabytes, just massive, massive amounts. Then there's velocity, the incredible speed it's coming at us. Think about every credit card swipe, every tweet, every stock trade happening every second. And finally, variety. This stuff isn't just neat rows and columns anymore. It's emails, photos, videos, audio files, you name it. Okay, so you're facing this tidal wave of volume, velocity, and variety. It feels like being dropped in the middle of a jungle without a map or a compass. Where do you even begin? Well, you need a plan. And that brings us to the analytics roadmap, a structured process that gives us a clear path through all that chaos. And this is that map. It's called the data analytics life cycle, and it breaks the whole journey down into 6 manageable phases. We start with discovery, figuring out what we're even trying to solve. Then comes data preparation, the big cleanup job. After that, we get to plan and build our models. And once we've found something, we communicate those results. And finally, we operationalize it to make a real difference in the real world. Now, let's zoom in on a phase that might not sound glamorous, but trust me, it's where projects live or die. This is where we go from a total mess to something meaningful. This is the real heavy lifting. See, data in the wild is almost never clean. It's messy, it's incomplete, it's just not ready for analysis. Think of a chef. They don't just throw ingredients in a pot, right? They wash, chop, and prep everything first. That's exactly what data preparation is. It's exploring, cleaning, and conditioning the data so it's perfect for the main event, the modeling. Now, during this prep phase, analysts run into this really weird problem called the curse of dimensionality. You'd think that having more variables, more dimensions, is always a good thing, right? More information. But it's not that simple. As you add more and more features, the data gets spread out so thin that it actually becomes harder to find meaningful patterns. It's just a lot of extra noise that can confuse your model. So how do you break the curse? Well, there's a really clever trick called dimensionality reduction. The whole idea is to cut down the number of features, but to do it smartly. You're trying to get rid of the noise while keeping all the important, essential information. It's all about simplifying the problem without losing the story the data is trying to tell you. Okay, so our data is clean, it's lean, and it's ready to go. Now we get to the really exciting part, finding those hidden patterns. This is where we open up the analyst toolkit and let the algorithms work their magic. Now, most of the tools in this kit fall into 2 big categories. On one side, you have supervised learning. The best way to think about this is that you have an answer key. You're feeding the model data where you already know the outcomes, like 1,000 emails labeled spam or not spam, to teach it what to look for. On the other side, you have unsupervised learning. Here, there's no answer key. You just dump a bunch of data on the algorithm and say, find the interesting groups in here for me. So let's make this a little more real. We're going to look at a classic supervised learning tool that's not only super powerful, but it's also really easy to understand. It's called the decision tree. A decision tree pretty much works like a game of 20 questions. It starts with a question about the data. That's a node. For example, is the customer over 30? Depending on the answer, yes or no, you go down a different branch to the next question. You keep following the branches all the way down until you hit a leaf at the end, which gives you the final prediction, like buys a computer. It's just a simple set of rules.
Okay, so that's what you do when you know what you're looking for. But what about that other side of the toolkit? What if you don't know the categories in advance? What if you want the data to reveal its own structure? Well, for that, you use something called cluster analysis. So what's a clustering algorithm actually trying to do? The idea is really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's trying to create groups where, one, everything inside a single group is as similar as possible, and two, the different groups are as different from each other as possible. So, high similarity within the groups and low similarity between the groups. That's the whole game. All right, we did it. We found the patterns, we have our big insight. But here's the thing, the job is not done, not even close. An amazing discovery that just sits on a hard drive is totally worthless, and that brings us to the final and maybe the most important part of our journey, turning that insight into actual impact. Phase 5 of our roadmap is all about communicating your results. And this is where a data scientist has to become a storyteller. You can't just throw a bunch of charts and numbers at people. You have to find the key message, explain what it's worth to the business in real dollars, and then weave a story that gets people to listen and, more importantly, to act. And finally, we get to phase 6, operationalize. This is the launch. This is when your model leaves the safety of the lab and goes out into the real world. The team hands over the final code, the reports, and usually they'll run a small pilot project first, kind of like a test flight, to make sure everything works perfectly before they roll it out for everyone. So, if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Data analytics isn't some kind of dark art or magic. It's a structured, disciplined process. It's a 6-phase life cycle that gives us a clear, repeatable way to turn mountains of raw, messy data into real, tangible value. We've gone all the way from the data deluge to a final working solution. We've given you the map for the entire journey, so now the only question left to ask is, what hidden patterns are you going to discover?